Hello, and welcome to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show where we meet up and coming indie authors and talk to them about their recently released books. Hello, and welcome to Author Roundup. Our special guest for today is a pastor, a motivational speaker, and now an author. Husband to Sylvia for 44 years, father of 8, and grandfather of 9. Come and join us as we talk to indie author Wally Long. Hi, Wally. Welcome to Author Roundup.
Hello, Jenny. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. The weather is beautiful in Missouri, and we're loving it right now. No rain, and it's not hot. It's perfect weather.
Good to know that. So you recently had your first book published.
Yes.
And it's called Why Me, Lord? Biblical and Practical Answers for Suffering in Our Lives. So if you'd like to tell us more about it.
Yes, the book was the end result of my own search for answers. Our family went through a series of tragedies beginning in 2006, where my sister, youngest sister of 4, I was raised with a brother and 2 sisters. My youngest sister committed suicide in 2006. And then I had a son who was 18 in the summer of 2007 that had a very, very terrible motorcycle accident, lost his right leg below the knee and almost died. And then my mother died shortly after that. And then it was just a few years later in 2011 when my brother and his wife were murdered. And that began my search for answers, because I was very obviously distraught. I was going through a lot of grief. I was in survival mode. So I began to search for answers, and that my answers led me to a sermon that I started to preach, and that sermon became the foundation of this book.
Okay, so I can just imagine how difficult that was for you, not only for you, but for your family as well, since...
Oh, it was. It was a very difficult journey. Besides my brother and his wife being murdered, their 2 youngest children were almost killed during the attack as well, that killed them. Then they survived. We adopted them. They became our 7th and 8th children. So that compounded our recovery process, because now we not only were recovering from the grief and the tragedy ourselves, but we were helping these children recover from very, very difficult circumstances, having been injured in the attack and what they went through, the trauma that they endured. But so it was difficult. I spent a few years just surviving, just making it day by day. And then I began, like I said, to search for answers, because I was struggling with, why is all this happening to me? Why would all this happen to my family? And it was bothering me that I wondered if I'd done something wrong, if I was being punished by God. I just kind of wondered all those things, not for any length of time, but just questions kept running through my mind. And that's when I began searching for answers and looking at the scriptures to try to find some comfort.
Okay, so this series of, unfortunate tragedies that happened in your life we can say these tragedies inspired you to write the book.
Yes,
right?
It did.
But at what point did you finally decide and, just say to yourself that I'm going to write a book?
Like I said, I began preaching that sermon in around 2013, 2014 timeframe. 2014 is when I became a pastor of a small Baptist church in Missouri. So I began preaching the message, and I preached it a few times. And then it kind of hit me, just the idea was born that maybe instead of just sharing this message with these small congregations and different conferences, maybe I should try to broaden the audience, because I believe that people need the answers that God had given me through that sermon. And so I began toying with the idea back in around 2014, 2015. I began toying with the idea of writing the book, but it just, I don't know if it was a lack of confidence in my ability, because I love to write. And of course, I've been a speaker for a long time, but maybe I was just nervous about getting started. But it took me a few years just tossing the idea around my mind. And then I finally decided to sit down and write it. I just felt like this is a message people need to read. They need this kind of message for the comfort and hope and strength to get through their difficult times.
Okay, can you share with us any anecdotes, while writing your book, like the writing experience, since you said it took like a few years?
Yeah, it took a few years. I actually started the writing process in January of 2022. It was kind of my New Year's thing. I was like, I decided this is the year I'm getting this book done this year. So I sat down and started writing, usually an hour or two a day. And I finished it in September is when I submitted it to Westbow Press for publishing. So it took me about 9 months. There was a number of times early on when I almost scrapped the whole idea because it seemed like an overwhelming process. One time I felt like I can't do this. And then I realized, you know what? I can do this just like I've done everything else in my life. If I just take it one day at a time, one step at a time, just keep moving forward, keep writing a little bit each day. And then it began to fill out a little bit. It's like, okay, maybe this will actually happen. I guess it was just the length of the process that was discouraging for a little while because I kept writing hours a day and it seemed like it wasn't getting anywhere because I'd scrap something and I'd start all over and finish it. So that was probably the biggest thing, was just that one time in February, March of 2022, when I just felt like I can't do this. I was ready to give up, and I didn't, because as you see on my shirt, I'm a U.S. Marine. I was in the Marines for 10 years, and we don't give up. And that's one of the things we're taught. We don't give up. And my dad taught me that as well. My dad was not a nice guy all the time, but he was one of the strongest men I've ever known. And he went through very difficult circumstances in his life, and he just did not give up. And I learned that from him. And that's when I decided, I'm not giving up. This is something I've wanted to do for years. I'm going to make it happen. So that was interesting. It was a struggle at first, but once it smoothed out, then I just kept clicking away at the keyboard until it got done.
I'm glad you did, because we wouldn't have the book now if you gave up.
Me too. And it's just been released since March 19th of this year. I know it's been a blessing to many people already. I've received a lot of feedback from people that have been very touched by the message of the book. So
you said it's not easy to just, to write your book, and it's about, difficult experiences you've had, but are there some fun? Is there a little bit of fun as well when you were writing the book? Like, were you able to go through something fun when you were writing it?
Yes, I was teaching some classes at a school on abstinence education. I was volunteering as part of a pregnancy care center in our area, and we were teaching classes in a local junior high school. And that time I had gotten so into writing the book that I took my computer with me, my laptop that I write on, I took it with me to the school and was writing during all of my breaks. Every time I had a break, I was sitting down and writing. I was so into it by that time, and people started asking me, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm writing my first book, and it's so cool. Look at, I've been writing for months, and I'm almost done, and I want to get it done. I got excited about the process at that time, and I began writing, and I was sharing with these people what I was writing about and why I was writing. So yeah, it was fun to begin to share with people that a dream that I had dreamed for years was finally starting to come together. At that time, I could see the book really coming together. The chapters were finishing up. The book was nearing completion, and I just got excited about it. It was fun to share that with other people, that this dream was about ready to come true.
Yeah. So you said that you have been a speaker for like most of your life.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and not much of a writer yet. So what is the difference between the two? Or yeah, if you can share
probably for me, it's the interaction with an audience. I enjoy public speaking and preaching because I interact with the people that I'm speaking to. I enjoy watching an audience when an idea you share, when it clicks, or when they grasp a concept that you're sharing, you can see it in their faces. And to me, that's energizing. That's not only am I giving them something, but they're giving back to me. The audience gives back to a speaker when he connects with them. And I enjoy that process. So the difference is, of course, sitting down and writing. When you're just writing, you don't get any feedback. Now I'm starting to get feedback now from readers, which is just as exciting as getting the feedback from audience, but it's delayed. It's a delayed response. You know,
Yes.
when you're writing, you write. Then you go through the several month process of actually publishing it, getting it through all the different stages of the publishing process. Then when the readers start reading it, now I'm getting that same feedback, and it's the same type of energy. My wife I'm forever sharing, hey, look at this response. Look at this feedback I got. Look at this Amazon review I got. And I got a letter from a gentleman who bought the book in Tennessee. He sent me a letter. He's an older gentleman. He's in his late 80s. And he read the book and sent me a letter because he doesn't do email. He's older. And he sent me a letter saying that, well, bottom line was, he said, this book that you wrote will be second only to me, only to my Bible in my life. He said, it's the most important book I've ever read besides my Bible. And that was just, what a blessing that was to have somebody say something like that about my work. So I'm starting to get that feedback now. But that's the difference. It's a delayed feedback when you're writing.
Correct. So that feedback that you got from, the letter from the older gentleman, would you say that's so far the nicest feedback you've gotten about your book, or are there other?
It probably is, but I've gotten several. That one lady wrote a review on Amazon, and she's actually a friend of mine. I used to work with her years ago. She bought the book, and she said she felt like that book came to her at just the right time in her life. She's struggling with cancer. She's struggling with answers to why she's not that old. She's in her early 60s. Why is she struggling with this cancer? Why is she having to go through this? She said she read the book. It brought tears to her eyes, and it helped her. It made her feel hope for her future. And so that was it. I've had several feedback like that. It seemed like it was very timely for people. But yeah, I think that letter from that gentleman was probably the most impressive. I just was so blessed by his statement that he made, but I've had several like that.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot more now that the book is out. So what do you think made your book connect to these people?
Because I'm real in the book. I write, I try to write very much like I speak. When I speak to people, it's a conversational tone. I try to connect with people. I try to be real in both the good and bad of my life. I let people know the good. I let people know the bad, and I put it together to give a message that gives them encouragement or inspiration or motivation. And I try to write in the same way, a very conversational way of writing. I use I when I write. So I think that connects with people because they know it's just me. It's just little old me, and nobody famous, nobody special, but I'm just sharing my heart. And I think that is what's connecting with people. I think just the fact that it's a very personal book, it was personal to me, but the message is, and I think it's easy to understand. I don't think it's complicated to understand. I think anybody could pick this book up and learn what they need to learn and see what they need to see. You don't have to know any deep theology. You don't have to know any fancy biblical terms. I try to explain things in a way that anyone can read that book. I think even a person who doesn't claim to be a Christian could read the book and get something out of it. I think it could be a blessing to them as well.
Okay. Without spoiling the contents of the book, to those who haven't read it yet, what is the message you would like the readers to take away from your book?
The message is that our trials and our sufferings have some purpose, that God uses trials and sufferings for some reason in life. He doesn't cause it. It's not his desire. Suffering and pain were never intended to be part of his creation. But when sin came into the world, suffering came along with it. And now mankind has been suffering since that time. But God then uses our suffering. He uses our tragedies. He turns them into some purpose. Kind of like in one part of the book, I use an analogy of Michelangelo and his sculpture that he did, where he would sculpture something. He would look at it and say, I see something in there, and I just need to get rid of all the bad stuff so everybody else can see what I see. And I think God does the same way. He uses our tragedies. He says, there's something good in there, and I'm going to bring it out. And so I think he uses our tragedies for some good purpose. He turns ugly into beautiful. He turns tragedy into triumph. He does that with our suffering. And I think, I don't know for a lot of people, but for me, that gives me comfort. That means that even when I'm in the middle of something difficult, I know that when I'm through it, or even through the process of going through it, that I will see something good come out of it. I think that's the overall message of the book, is that there is some purpose. There is, and I hesitate to say it that way because I don't like the phrase, everything happens for a reason. Well, I know why people say that. People say that to say something good comes out of everything. And I guess in a sense that's true, but there are reasons why bad things happen. And usually bad things happen because of ourselves. I know in my life, a lot of my suffering over the years has been caused by my own decisions that I've made that were bad. You make a bad decision, you reap bad consequences. But our suffering does happen for a reason. But I want people to know that it's not just the reason, but the purpose for our suffering, that God will use our suffering to bring something good out of it.
So that's a very brave thing to say, especially coming from you who has been through a lot of tragedies, right? And that gives us, those who are hearing what you're saying, and then those who will be reading your book, comfort that, there is, a silver lining to all this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to touch on the things that happen in your life a little bit, since this would be, you said that the book is very personal.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Would you be talking about those tragedies in the book?
Yes. In the preface of the book, I discussed that whole process that led up to the book, because I think I wanted people to read that, to know where I was coming from, why I began looking for these answers, and that these answers are not coming. They're not a theological study that I did. They're not, I just began studying suffering. I went through it. And so I wanted people to understand that there was a basis for what I was saying, that what I was saying was something I experienced personally. And so I listed out very, very much in detail about all the tragedies, that whole series of things that we went through. I list that in detail in the preface of the book, telling that story, sharing my testimony, as it were, where the book started, because that's where it all started, was in my own suffering and own tragedy and trials that my family experienced.
Okay. So when you were writing the book and, talking about everything that happened in your life, how difficult was it for you, like reliving all of those, bad things that happened in your life? And
honestly, I don't think it was as difficult as some might think, because I have tried to deal with my own grief in such a way that it has become a victorious thing. You know what I'm saying? It's become something that, even though I still get tears in my eyes when I speak about it sometimes, when I share the story, but it's not necessarily tears of sadness. I guess it is, in a way, a little bit of sadness that still comes, because the kind of pain we experience never goes away completely. And if you've ever been through anything very, very difficult, you know that the death and tragedy sometimes does not ever go away. The pain is still, but it's more like a scar. It's like, well, I had my knees replaced 2.5 years ago. Both my knees are fake knees now. Because my knees were shot, so I had to replace. So I have good knees. They work well, but still I can tell that they're not like they were supposed to be. They're not my natural knees. There's still a huge scar down the middle of both knees. I don't experience a lot of pain, but there's a lot of stiffness that goes along with that surgery, that even 2.5 years later that I have to work out of. So even though I feel good, my knees work well, I can walk miles and miles and miles at a time with no problem. Even though they work well, there's still a reminder to me that there was a problem with my knees. And I think that's the way suffering is. And I've tried to deal with mine as I began to heal. And actually, finding the sermon, finding those answers, and writing the book was actually very healing for me. It was very, it helped me rather than caused me difficulty. I don't think it was hard. I'm looking for a word, and I should be able to think of it, but it was just good for me to go through. I think it was a very good process for me to rehash those and begin to see once again all of the good that came out of the tragedy. You know what I'm saying? That there's so much more good in the last, well, it's been 13 years now. And since that happened, since my brother's murder, there's been so much good that's happened that it was hard to be sad, I guess. I saw a lot of good in the process. Even the two children that we adopted, my brother's children, the youngest graduates from high school in 2 days. And she goes on to college next year. The boy that we adopted, he got married last year, and he's looking to enlist in the armed forces as an officer because he got his degree as well from college. So there's all the triumph and all the good that I see now. And so it was, no, I don't, to answer your question plainly, it was not difficult. It wasn't hard for me to go through them again because I saw more of the good than I did the tragedy.
Okay, so hopefully the book or people reading the book it can help them in the healing process, just like
yes, I believe so.
It helped you.
I believe so.
So I'm sure they're going to find something that would give them hope from the book.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So how about for those who are writing or who would want to come up with a book of their own as well? What advice can you give those who are just writing or planning to write a book?
Well, I again, like I said, for me, I think they need to be real. I think we, as authors, people, especially not famous authors, we're just first-time authors. We're just regular people writing a book. It needs to come from the heart. Academic study is good, but that academic study needs to be backed up by real-life experience. And I think that's what people look for in a book, is they look for real life. They look for somebody who really knows what they're talking about from personal experience. I would say that set your mind to the fact that it won't be easy. The writing, even though you might be a good writer, and I've been a good writer. I mean, I've written papers and gotten a lot of feedback on college papers, and I've known for a while I've been able to write. I've written a lot of devotional material that I've posted in times past for people to read, and I'm actually, that's one of the books, the future projects, is to put together a devotional project. I like to put together enough of them where somebody could read for 365 days and have something different each day. But so I know I could write, but the writing process when I started writing the book was more difficult than I ever imagined. So I would just say to people, realize it's going to be difficult. It won't be easy, even though you know what you want to say. It doesn't always get on paper like you want it to, and you have to just write. You just need to let your thoughts pour out, let your ideas, put them on paper. And rather, like I did, I went back when I didn't like something, I went back and started changing it then. I think a better process is just to write. Put your thoughts down. Don't worry about how it comes out right now. Get it written down, and then later when you're finished, then you go back and begin to change things, add some ideas, adapt a little bit, just do some different things there. I think it's better just to write, but just understand it won't be easy. It'll be a lengthy process, and you have to set your mind to the fact that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you just need to keep running. Just need to keep running through. Just step by step by step. Keep writing. And before you know it, I think you'll have a finished product. And it's pretty sweet to hold that book in your hand the first time. Like when I held this in my hand the first time, the feeling was absolutely incredible to hold my book with my name for the first time. The feeling is worth every bit of the difficulty it was to make myself sit down and write sometimes.
So consistency is the key.
Yes, I think so.
You've said, just having an hour or 2 hours a day just to write something.
Right.
And then just keep on writing, like you've said.
Right.
Yeah. That gives us hope to those who would want to write a book too. So
Absolutely.
so you did mention that you have plans of coming up with a devotional book.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I
that's
I have
would
a
there.
couple of I have a couple more books I'm planning on writing. One is a devotional book where I want to put together real life stories that Scripture applies to, and how Scripture applies to those stories. Some of from my own life, some from the lives of others that I know. I'll begin to collect stories from people and put together a devotional book. That's one of the projects that's on my list of projects to begin writing. Another one is a topic I called, and it's a speech I've given that says you can't steer a parked car. And the idea of, well, a car that's parked, you can turn the steering wheel, but you're not steering the car because it has no motion, it has no direction. And I think life is very much the same way. We often don't know none of us know what lies a year from now, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but we start heading that direction. And I believe as Christian believers, if we have the right heart and we're moving in the direction we believe God wants us to go, he steers the car at that point and gets us where he needs us to be. And so it's the idea of doing God's will in our life. So that's another project I'd like to do, is you can't steer a parked car. And then I want to do one other project for sure that I have in mind right now is called Created to Communicate. It's a book on the basics of public speaking and helping people to overcome the fear of public speaking and to begin to develop the skills they need to effectively present their message in a situation that may be uncomfortable for them right now. Because I believe, and I call it Created to Communicate, because I believe as in human beings, we are created by God to be communicators. The problem is we develop a fear of communication, a fear of public speaking, either through an environmental process, the things we're raised in, people making fun of us, maybe our personality, but we develop a fear of doing what we're created to do. So I plan on writing a book helping people to overcome that fear and develop the basic skills they need to get out there and share a message with people.
That's exciting. So a few more books to
That's
write.
The plan. That's the plan.
We're hoping to see those books in print soon. I'm sure they will be helping a lot of people, especially the ones about public speaking. Yes. And, not what's that, how to steer a parked car?
Yeah, you can't steer a parked car.
Can't. Okay.
How to know God's will by doing God's will is essentially what the subtitle, how to know God's will by doing God's will. Because I believe sometimes people get it backwards. They try to find what they're supposed to do before they go do it. I believe you need to just go do what it is you need to do right now, and then you find what you're supposed to do later. So,
are you planning to have any of those books out this year, or?
I don't know if I'm going to have them out this year, but I am going to start writing. My life has gotten really, really busy with trying to market this book and with the meetings and different things I've done with this book. But I do plan to sit down very, very soon and start writing. And maybe, hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have another manuscript ready. So I don't know which one for sure of the three that I'll start on first, but one of them will get started here very soon and hopefully have it done by the end of the year.
Yeah. So those ideas are a good start. And then, just like what you said to us, just keep on writing.
Consistency. That's it. Just right.
Yeah. Okay. So would you still have room for some personal goals this year?
Personal goals?
Still have some personal goals?
I would like to begin traveling to other meetings to speak about the topic of this book. Not so much to market Why Me, Lord, but to speak about that topic. So I'll be launching some marketing campaigns to get booked for speaking engagements at churches, conferences, even Bible camps, other meetings where somebody might want to hear that topic presented in a live, engaging way. So that's one of my personal goals, is to start booking some speaking engagements and broaden my scope of my influence, or the influence that God has given me through the message of this book and the message that sermon, that speech that's been developed. So that's probably one of my personal goals.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy year promoting this
I hope so.
book that recently came out, and of course, trying to start any of those books that you mentioned, like the devotional book and the public speaking, yeah, and all those. So any final message you have for our readers and listeners?
Well, I would like to invite them to they connect with me on Facebook, Wally Long. Technically, I guess my Facebook tag is Wally Long 1960. So they could look for Wally Long 1960. My beautiful face will be on my profile picture. Not so beautiful, really, but it'll be my profile picture, so they should be able to find me. I'd invite them to connect with me there. They can follow me and get regular updates about that book and maybe the upcoming books, and just kind of follow my life a little bit. And they can actually go back and read some of the story that led to this book. And there's places on my Facebook that has that. I'd also like to invite them to go to my website, wallylong.com, and there they'll find a little bit more about the book, some blurbs about it. They'll find a section where some of the things people are saying about the book, some of the comments that have been made, the blessing it's been to other people's lives. So I'd like to invite them to go there as well, wallylong.com. And of course, if they want to purchase the book, they can do it from a link on the website, which takes them to Amazon. They can also go to the Westbow Press bookstore and buy it there as well for $12.99 for the paperback and $33.99, I think, for the hardback. And it's also in ebook form for $5.99 on Amazon and Westbow Press, which I guess would be another personal goal. Eventually, I'd like to be able to produce an audiobook. I know that's been talked about, an audiobook, and I'd like to produce a follow-up to Why Me, Lord on a study guide to use for small group Bible studies. I've had several people want to use it, and I've started using it for small group Bible studies and even Sunday school classes. So there probably will be a study guide forthcoming at some time in the near future, I hope, anyway.
Okay, that's great. So your book is available. I just want to repeat what you've said. So your book is available as a softcover, hardcover, and ebook.
Ebook.
Yes.
On Amazon and other online retailers, Barnes & Noble, Christian Bookstore, Christian Book Distributors, several other online retailers. I've actually seen it on online retailers in New Zealand, Germany, Australia. It's listed. I don't know how it's sold around there, but it's been listed in a lot of places. It's all over the world online. It can be found very easily.
Yes. So that's a good way of reaching out worldwide. So your book will be available in online resellers and, of course, in our Westbow Press online bookstore in case they want to get a copy. Okay. So thank you so much, Wally. That was a very sincere and inspiring conversation we had this morning. And thank you also to all our viewers and listeners. And until the next episode of the Author Roundup.